Welcome to the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. I'm your host, Brandon. With me, as always, is Dave. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. We had another week of basketball, so that means we had another week of fun things happening. Another week of things to talk about. This week we might keep it a little light. We got the East. We're gonna do a little East check-in. See how teams are doing over there. There's a lot of stuff happening over there, good and bad, and we'll let you decide
There's
if it's
stuff
good or bad.
happening. Yeah.
But there's certainly a lot of stuff happening in the East, so we're gonna check in on that. And as well, we're checking in some early MVP favorites heading into that. I think we'll talk about a lot of the West when we come to that. So there'll be some balance here still. How was your week in the NBA world?
Yeah, it was good. There's going to be another new statue.
I did see.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's done a little bit better.
Well, are the Heat going to race the Lakers now to get up their own Pat Riley statue?
Well, they did name their court after Pat Riley. So they got their they got
something.
They got their fixing, so they're good for at least that buys them a little bit of time. Like the court will forever be known as a Pat Riley court. So that will be there no matter what sponsor comes in. So they have
until they get a new building.
Until they get a new building, then they gotta transport that court though. That signature can move. But yeah, no, that's a cool one. I think the Lakers doing that. The Lakers will be having a statue of Pat Riley. They announced that they'll be doing that. So yeah, that'll be cool to see. He has history there, championships. I think about 6 over there. 1 as a player, 5 as a coach. Yeah, so lots of history with him doing things there. They started bringing him over in Miami Heat. Just one of the best basketball minds that we ever got to see.
Yeah, it is well deserved, honestly. I'm just I'm having a little fun with you. It's are we in a renewed statue era though? Is this the way to honor guys? They all got to get statues, and then in which case, where do all these statues go?
Yeah, where do they go? They just stay outside the stadiums until there's no more space to walk into them. They're just going to be the guards at some point.
Right? People got to park somewhere. It can't be full of statues.
It's kind of, there's so many jersey retirements. We can't retire every jersey anymore. Like we're gonna run out of numbers. We're gonna run out of space in front of buildings. Yeah. No, so that's some good stuff from the Lakers. And statue craze is going on right now. I wonder who will be next. There was a Raptor statue too, of the Vince Carter through the legs. They had a little one with their little promo for the city jerseys. I don't know if you caught that as well, but in that they had a little VC Raptors fusion statue thing going on there. Didn't look too bad.
Not right. Didn't look too bad. See? Well, VC going through the legs, like it's always a good look. I'm literally on Team Shop right now, looking at the Raptors city jersey and asking myself if I want to buy it.
Just do it. Pull the trigger.
With the Dino doing the Carter. And he is number 15. So this Dino is Vince Carter.
Yeah, it is a Vince Carter Dino. It is him. Let's start off all Raptors, dinosaurs. We might as well start off in the East. We did have some NBA Cup action today. One game being the Boston Celtics versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland gets their streak snapped by the Boston Celtics. First thoughts on that, seeing that go down tonight.
I was wondering, I thought this could be the game that did it. And it's not anything against Cleveland. It just kind of had to happen statistically. They just kind of reached that point where they needed to lose a game. And Boston was the most likely candidate, and they played really well. And they took it home. They beat Cleveland.
Yeah, they took down the mighty Cleveland. What was interesting to me about this game is that you have it really felt like from the get that Boston came out with the energy look, we want to just prove to everybody that we're still the best team in the NBA. This is we might have lost a couple games here and there, but that might be due more to motivation, championship hangover, knowing that we don't have to go all in the season anymore, and we're just kind of making sure that we're all right for when the playoff time. But seeing them come out with that energy that they came out with today, just to kind of like remind the league, like, we are still the Boston Celtics. We are the best team in the NBA. Everyone's still trying to catch up to us. And when they're firing like that from downtown, that they're really hard to beat. What was nice though is the comeback that Cleveland did make. They did make a little comeback there in the second half, made it more of a game. You didn't see them die out, because if the one thing that you're going to see with Boston, like if there's a weakness to poke at, there's not much over there. But if there's something to poke at, it's that front court. Horford had a really good game today. He had, I think, about 4-3, 20 points, 8 rebounds. So he had like a vintage throwback game for him. And he still seems to give like other opposing bigs trouble. Like, but Mobley seemed to have some get a little bit on him. And if he can continue to do that, and that's some positive signs there that you can get from that, you need Mobley and Allen firing on all cylinders to have a chance against this Boston team, because you really do need to punish the front court. That is their weakest spot. Garland had a hard one. When you have Derek White and Drew Holiday just on you for most of the game, it's going to be tough. It's going to be rough.
Yeah.
So I think finding ways to ease his workload, Donovan Mitchell was able to play well. But finding ways to get Garland going in these type of situations in big games is going to be, I think, their next step for Cleveland. And having the bigs really shine is going to be another step for them as well. If they could put that together, maybe we can see some type of success coming out of the East.
Yeah, well, and so when Boston gets back Porzingis as well, it's going to add another layer where you know, it might not be a Horford game, but Porzingis is going to give you a whole different set of problems, and that's it. Like, I believe they've played already this year though, and Cleveland won.
Yeah, the first time. Yeah, I think
the first time they played. Yeah. I think it's going to go well. I still believe in Boston more. A lot of it comes down to the 3-point shooting. Just everyone on Boston can throw down threes. So like in today's modern NBA, I think Boston's still a little bit deeper. Obviously, you know, they've got the championship pedigree. I still believe in Boston, and they showed today that, like, I think we should all still believe in Boston.
Yeah, it's Boston is the favorite. There's so many questions with a lot of these teams, and we'll get into some of them as we dive into later on to this podcast, whether it be when we talk about MVPs or just more of what's going on in the East. That Boston is just the one team that seems sure of itself and sure knows what it wants to do, has the right mindset. I'm really impressed with like Joe Mazzulla and how he's handled things. I wasn't a fan of like them getting rid of, well, I understand why they got rid of Ime, so for those reasons I understood why they had to part ways with him. But for basketball reasons, I didn't love losing Ime, and getting Joe Mazzulla. I wasn't too sure about him, didn't know much of his track record, but now seeing that he's a crazy guy, first and foremost, he's crazy. But
the guys love him. The players love him.
It's the type of crazy that you need, and it's the type of crazy that I think this Boston team responds well to. Because Ime kind of had like that edge to him that gave some of the toughness that Boston needed in that time of their development. But I think where they're at now with these guys, I think a little bit of crazy is just like what they need. But focus crazy, where they won tonight and he's still talking about wanting to be able to repeat the same type of success that they had tonight in their next game in 72 hours. So he's just always thinking forward, putting successes, just like not praising them too much, giving them the proper credit and moving on to the next task at hand. So I really liked what he's done. Maybe an early favorite for coach of the year. Usually goes to one of the best teams, so probably so. But
yeah, we haven't had anybody necessarily like super overperforming. Well, I guess it just depends on like where Detroit ends up. If they end up in the playoffs,
JB Bickerstaff.
Yeah, exactly.
Look out. Yeah, I mean, we might have to talk about Detroit. But yeah, that's the top of the East. Now we can go all the way to the other end of the East with the Sixers, who currently, as we record this, are tied to be the worst team in the NBA. When I've had that on my bingo card.
Yeah, that one's surprising. We knew the injuries would make it tough for them to open the season, but I never expected it to be this tough. And I still think like the Sixers are a pretty good team. And like when they get healthy, hopefully, they'll actually start to like roll really well. Like I think one of Paul George's like best traits is that he can just like fit in, like if Maxey and Embiid have like a great pick and roll game going on, like he can just find ways to add to that without like demanding the ball away, taking the ball away.
Yeah, he's good enough off ball to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I think when they finally do get the like chance to play together, have they even played together like
No,
at all? Have they done any
when
minutes?
I felt like when Embiid came, like I'll have to double check, but I feel like when Embiid came back, Maxi was out. So I don't
Yeah,
think
I
they've
think
really
so.
gotten that full run as a trio together yet, and I think that makes a big difference. Like Maxi was doing a lot of the hard lifting not only this year but the end of last year too. So he's used to having to carry that load. I think it just kind of caught up with him at the beginning of this year, and that's why he got kind of hurt early. Having to shoulder that again so tough, and he was the one so there was a players only meeting or team meeting, sorry, called after the loss to Miami last night, where it seemed like they spoke for over an hour. I think they said, reporters called by Kyle Lowry, former Raptor, called the team meeting together. He did not like how it was going, the season was going. One of the notable things that seemed to have leaked from this meeting was Tyrese Maxey calling out Embiid's work ethic, like how ready he is when he comes to practice and all that type of stuff, and not being kind of like the leader that I guess he expects from a vet. So hearing that news, what was like kind of like first reaction on that?
Oh, my first reaction is I guess the process era in Philadelphia has come to an end, because this is the Maxey era. This is his team. If he's calling out Joel Embiid for things like basically being a pro, and like he's as good as he is, like I don't know. It could either like really work, and maybe Joel starts to realize like all of his potential, right? Or it backfires and they don't pass to each other, and then it gets messy. And then who are you going to back?
Right.
Who are you going to keep? Are you going to keep Tyrese Maxey right now, or are you going to keep Joel Embiid right now? I'm going to keep Tyrese Maxey.
The way that's looking, it's like he's been the guy that's been there. He's been through the trenches with the team through all the iterations. Hasn't really said much. He's kind of been a good soldier through it all. So I can understand his frustration getting to the point where it's like, look, I've been here all this time and I'm finally here, and now I need some help. I need some help from my MVP veteran. And it is a shame, because I feel like with Embiid, it's kind of tough for him to get into the proper shape. He's been sick. He's had the USA team, but I think it just comes from a point of like habit from like when he started his career. He's able to just rely on his talent for so long that I don't know how much he's actually had to put into the other side of things. And early on in his career, he was very focused on getting those MVPs and prioritizing like season awards, season success, that cost him some of those playoff runs. And I feel like now when he's finally in that mindset to kind of focus more on just playoffs, like he entered this season like talking about how he's not going to worry too much about the season and just get to the playoffs. I think it might have tilted a little too much in one direction, and he just needs to kind of find that balance with his team, so that he could be the MVP, the leader that they need him to be, so they can be a contender. They're a team coming into the season that was looked at as one of the top 3 teams in the East, a team that could challenge Boston for the Eastern Conference Championship. So at this point now, I know it's tough to say. Do you still feel confident in them getting? Because I know you said they'll right the ship somewhat. Do you think they can right the ship enough to be in that top tier? They might not get their record rise, but at least by playoff time, be one of the teams that you're not happy going into a 7-game series against.
Yeah, I mean, if they're healthy, I think still no team wants to play them. The problem is, they're like bad enough early on that like righting the ship is going to be, what do they say? They say they're like 5 games out of 5th place. So righting the ship may not be impossible by any means, but chances are you're going to be like the 6th, 7th, 8th seed. And in which case you're playing like a Boston or a Cleveland in the first round, which is right where you don't want to be. So can they get all the way up to like a 4th, 5th seed? It's hard to say. I don't know if they can anymore.
East is bad enough; they might be able to sneak in there. They might just. Staying
Believe
on
in Brooklyn, my friend. Come on.
I believe in Brooklyn. I believe in Brooklyn. Wow. Also, with the Sixers coming out of that team meeting was it sounds like Embiid had like a sense of confusion with what was going to what the coach wants to be done on any given possession. We do know that Nick Nurse likes to switch things up and kind of deliver different messages throughout the game, and you kind of have to be quick on your feet to pick up what he wants to do. But it feels as if he hasn't had the locker room in the way that he's had it in the past with the Raptors. We know at certain times during the Raptors there was some friction as well too, but this just seems more of like confusion more so than them being upset with the way that they're being coached. They're being upset with the way that they're being coached in the sense that they want to be coached harder, which seems to be odd hearing it from a Nick Nurse perspective, as knowing how he was with Toronto. He was kind of like the opposite. He was a little bit too hard. He was too vocal with the public. Do you think it's a case of where Nick Nurse is trying to overcorrect on his former coaching flaws, or do you think it's just a situation where it's just really tough in Philly to find that balance?
Yeah, he's probably trying to overcorrect. And, like in Toronto, I mean, he had like Kyle Lowry, who was at the time one of the best players on the team, and he would always be in Nurse's corner and deliver his message. And so it was like easy because his veterans and his best players were on his side. But because he would call it like a Chris Boucher a lot.
Right.
But he may have went into Philadelphia with too much respect for like an Embiid.
Right.
And like Embiid may need a calling out every once in a while. He may just respond that way. Who knows? Yes, his offense can sometimes be funky. Like I think Pascal Siakam even had a problem at one point with like not really knowing what he's supposed to do every possession as well, and being like one of the primary hubs of the Toronto Raptors when Nick Nurse was coach. So I could see this problem still like persisting.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick Nurse was at his best when Chris Finch was his offensive coordinator, and he's just like, take the offense.
Yeah.
Right. And the Raptors were at their best at that time. Sorry, not Nick Nurse. But maybe even Nick Nurse a little bit. Maybe that's just it. He needs another really like.
Sometimes these coaches need that
strong offensive coordinator, somebody that like he respects and he's not going to overrule, and he can say like, "Hey, the offense is yours. Let's go win a championship."
Yeah, and I think that's one way to look at it too. Like thinking about like coaching duos like that reminds me of Boston Celtics 08 with the year that they won with Doc Rivers being the head coach, but you had Thibodeau as your defensive coordinator. So you had that guy like being the focus of the defense, so he was able to figure things out on that end, and it just brings a relief to the head coach in that sense. So I think something like that makes sense too. Also with Nurse, he's known to be the defensive guy. I remember sometimes with the Raptors, it did get a little funky on the offense. Yeah, it got clogged down. It wasn't as clear. The Kawhi year was a little easier because you had Kawhi, so he kind of just bail you out.
You just give him the ball.
So,
it was like
even with that, until they really got Marc Gasol, it was a little funky as well because the ball movement wasn't really where it needed to be, and people just seem a little bit unsure of when to attack. When is it my turn? When is it this guy's turn? So I think that's a trait of Nick Nurse, at least on the offensive end. And I think on defense, this roster isn't really built the way to handle all those different actions or schemes that Nick Nurse would like to play. So he's kind of stuck playing a certain way that isn't really beneficial to his style, and he has to adapt this roster that's maybe not constructed the greatest to fit the need to just win games at this point and not just focus on like what's going to work come playoff time, but like what's going to win us some season games and what can be kind of like our base. I think not having your star players in and out of lineups doesn't help that case at all.
In and out of lineups, in and out of training camp, like it's been a really difficult start to the year for Philadelphia. If they turn their season around fully, like, we're going to be talking about Nick Nurse for Coach of the Year.
Yeah. It'll be a crazy coaching job if he's able to right this ship. Especially with how the vibes are feeling. Maybe the team meeting's all they need. That's what they need. More success though. more success in the East is the Magic. Paulo went down. They went on a little bit of a losing streak. But ever since then, Franz Wagner has said, I am an all-star and I will be respected as such, and has carried the Magic to 6 straight wins. That kind of hit me out of nowhere when I was looking at it the other night. How do you feel about the Magic and their little run recently? And are they a true threat in the East? Because once you add Powell, that is a team again. Like that is, you have 2 guys on the wing who can create, can score, can do different things out on the wing. You have defensive stopper in Jalen Suggs. Like you have the form, you have the makings of a really good team there, and like having a vet like KCP to kind of just fill in where needed is always nice as well.
Looking at roster construction, how you mentioned the defensive stopper and Sal. You mentioned the 2 wing guys, and you mentioned like the smart guard vet, and I just think of the Boston Celtics, right? 2 wing guys in Tatum and Brown, good defensive guard in Drew Holiday, and a smart vet guard in Derek White. And it's like, it's the same recipe in Orlando. Right. And they're years behind. Like, it takes a long time for these guys to like blossom. Just ask Boston fans who were debating whether or not they needed to trade one of Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum.
We were doing it last year.
And I'm sure Magic fans have gotten to a point where they're like, will Franz work with Paolo long term? And this is great for all the development. This is great for the Magic. I didn't want to see them like fall out of contention just because Paolo went down. And I was a little concerned, like when he went down and they were losing. Mm-hmm. I was bummed out. I was like, come on. Like there's more talent on this team than just Paolo. Like they got to figure this out. So I'm actually really proud of them. I'm low key big Magic fan, at least of this team.
Yeah, no, this is a good one to be a fan of. And then even you have like your young guys there, Anthony Black stepping up in certain games. You had 20 the other night. You have Tristan Da Silva also having some good moments here and there to kind of pick up the slack there. So they got some stuff building. You still got Jet Howard there, just sneakily on the bench there, that one day that is gonna pop. I have faith in that. So I think when you look at the Magic coming down this season, do you think they need to make another move this year for something a little bit more immediate, so to add a little bit more talent? Just because I think the one place where we can question their ability is on the offensive side of things. I know you have scorers and Franz and Paulo when he comes back, but still in that guard position, Jalen Suggs he's done a lot. He's done a much better job this year, but you still want like that other guard scorer, like real guy who can just light him up. Do you think they go after something like that during this season, or do you think they can wait a season and just see how this year pans out and fill holes in the offseason as needs?
So do you think they need the guard scorer, or do you think they need like the playmaking big man?
I think they kind of wanted Wendell to be that guy, right? And I don't think he hasn't been. He's been in and out of the lineup far too much to have any consistency there. I think either of the two. I think they need a big. I think they need a consistent big that they can rely upon, who's going to be there through and through. I think he needs to be more of the playmaking kind, like a more of a stretchy big. I think that would be what they would need. I think that's what they wanted in Wendell Carter Jr. He didn't really pan out, so I think they need something like that. But I just feel that they're a little light on the offensive end when it comes to just getting easy shots. Like when things break down, I have all the faith in Franz. I have all the faith in Powell to create something. But just to get something in the flow of offense, I think they're still missing something like there. Like even if it's just like a simple shooter, like a Joe Harris, like back in the day. I can't believe it's back in the day now. But like a JJ Redick, a Duncan Robinson, someone like that who can just kind of give you some shooting options just to take the pressure off of Paulo and take the defensive eyes off of Paulo and Franz when things kind of bog down.
Yeah, like Buddy Hield would have been a great candidate.
Buddy Hield-ish,
go to
the Warriors.
The Warriors. Yeah, and maybe teams used to be able to find those guys. Just the guy who's randomly having like the 40% from 3 season. and just like be able to find them and get them and add them to the roster. But with the high emphasis placed on shooting, I don't know if you can just like find those guys out there anymore. Like they're not just like guys in the G League that you can bring up and give some runs. They're all kind of like known.
Yeah.
So
it's tougher now, for sure.
Yeah, it's tough. And they're so highly desirable that like I don't know. I'm sure there's some guy out there that you could get and that it would be a very reasonable trade and it would make sense.
Would a CJ McCollum work out for this team?
Yeah, absolutely. Because he'd get a little bit of defensive protection from Suggs. He's not the biggest guy, but he doesn't need to be the biggest guy on this team. He would be a great secondary playmaker. He's a great shooter historically. Yeah, he'd make a lot of sense. But are the Pelicans at the point where they're breaking it up?
Yeah, I think the Pelicans, I feel, are just in a position where they kind of need to free up minutes for certain guys and free up touches for certain guys, and they've kind of got lucky with injuries. It's kind of clean that up for them. But if they ever get healthy, then it's kind of like how does CJ even touch the ball when you're in a lineup with DeJounte, Brandon Ingram, Zion, Herb, and Trey Murphy? Like you have all those guys that kind of need to get shots, and a lower usage guy might do more. They kind of should have kept Dyson Daniels. I feel like that guy's been. Well, we might look back on that trade.
That guy was good. Yeah. But to be fair, like DeJounte Murray's been hurt for most of the year.
I like DeJounte a lot for them too.
Yeah, me too. And like, by the small sample sizes that we have in DeJounte's career, you look at him on the Spurs. When he was given the keys to the Spurs, he was great, right? He goes to Atlanta. He's got to play a part. He's got to play second fiddle to Trae Young. And he's okay, but he's not that same player. And early on this year, I kind of thought, like, are we getting the DeJounte of old? And then he got his wrist injury, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I'm down for it. Yeah, because he had like 1 or 2 games where he like looked really good.
Yeah,
before he got hurt. So I don't think the trade's gonna be a bad one. I think they got kind of like what they needed, but Dyson is looking good. He's looking good. But to cap it off with the Magic, though, just looking at those last 6 games where they've been undefeated, they have had the best defense in the NBA with a defensive rating of 95.6. Their offense is 10th. So just a little above average, right around there. So I think honestly for contenders and for good teams, that's what you want. You want like a top 5 defense and the top like 12-ish offense. I think once you're able to do that, you're in any series really.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, well, top 10 offense, top 10 defense, like you're looking pretty good, you just got to hold it. You got to hold it all year, which is the tough part.
That is the trick. But they got reinforcements coming back soon. Would you put in Franz for if we had to do All-Star team right now? Would he make your All-Star ballot or is that still a little far fetched? They're a top team in the East, so you kind of got to give them 2, just almost by default 1.5, 2. And if Paulo is back, I feel like they're just by default he's gonna get all the votes for Magic. But if they do get a second one, does Franz make it in there?
Yeah, I mean, like he's certainly playing like an all-star, right? There's all kinds of guys always every year that are playing like all-stars that don't make it for whatever reason. Franz would just be
one of those guys. You feel?
Yeah, he would just get squeezed out due to numbers. Because Paulo, if he's healthy, he's gonna be an all-star, no question. But Franz is playing well enough to be an all-star, absolutely.
Yeah. Good stuff and we do have we didn't touch on it quickly, but we do have a new all-star format that's being considered at the moment, where they're going for a tournament style competition of 4 teams of 8 to play, with one of the teams being the winner of the Rising Stars game. You feel that'll bring some competition back to the All Star Sunday?
Give the winning team $1 million like you do the
NBA Cup.
The NBA Cup, and you might. The amount of guys who are just like openly like, yeah, I'm gonna play my tail off because I want that money, right? And it's like, yeah, okay, yeah. If this is, and like,
this is your motivator, yeah.
It's not a small amount of money, but like compared to what these guys, like the superstars make, it's not the most amount of money compared to like, but for role players, this is a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm kind of, if all it takes is money to fix things like the All-Star game, then pay these guys some money. You make enough of it. Let's go.
Yeah, put it back in there. The one thing that interests me is having the Rising Stars team in there.
I love that, honestly. Like a Rising Stars team that like runs the gambit.
Yeah, that's my hope, is that the Rising Stars team is just like, we want to show that we're all stars. We're really the all stars here. And embarrass the team. And I wonder if they embarrass like one of those teams, if the next team that they play, or however this tournament pans out, takes it a little more personal. Like, oh, we don't want these young guys to kind of show like we're the all stars here, or do they just not care? Like, I don't know. It could go either way for me.
Probably wouldn't be this year's rookie team that would do it, but maybe next year's. Like Cooper Flag showed really well against the
get some sophomores.
Yeah, oh, that's true.
So you get Chet. You can get Chet in there. You can get, well, Wemby's probably going to be an all-star this year.
Yeah, he's just going to be a straight all-star. And if Chet's healthy, should be an all-star too. But yeah, I love it. Right? Like I just want to see the young team that goes out and beats like the Giannis Jokic team.
Yeah, that'd be so much fun. Give them something. Give them some shame. Moving on with our East check-in. I think the last thing just to touch on is two teams that I think kind of like stood out to me early on, that they're kind of still middle of the pack here. Like they're, I think, around 7 and 8 is Hawks, and Hawks are actually 5th right now. Hawks and Detroit. Detroit is at 7th right now in the Eastern Conference. Two teams that were kind of overlooked coming into the season that have definitely overperformed expectations so far. I guess starting with the Hawks, I really like seeing that little trio of Dyson Daniels. We talked about him a little bit earlier, but Dyson Daniels. Wow, my middle name's Daniels, and I can't even say it.
Great barrier thief.
Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson. And who's my third there? Zachary Rechache. I know it's a little rough there, but I think that's close. I like the trio of them three. I think that the two big wings really intrigues me, and adding a guy like Dyson, who's like Derek White with athleticism, is really, really good for like a young core and a great building block to start off a franchise. But looking at that team constructed that way, how necessary is a Trae Young to that build? Like, does Trae Young need to be there to kind of be the orchestrator of that team, or do you look for something a little bit different now that you're starting to establish some other guys?
I think one of the best things that Trae does for that team is he adds a lot of gravity. You're always going to respect Trae for spacing, and then he can just make all those guys work. Like Trae's probably thought of as like a shooter scorer first, but his playmaking and connectivity is excellent. And to just kind of like get the ball to guys like where they need it. And like, it's Trae's team again. With DeJounte gone, it's Trae's team again. And the team is just more balanced. They just make more sense. Yeah. And I think they're just reaping a lot of rewards from just kind of like developing roles for guys like Trae. You're the offense, go run the offense. Zach and who's the other big wing over there?
Sorry, Jalen Johnson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jalen Johnson. Like, just go out there, run the wings, get up and down the floor, play defense, right? be athletic, and the ball will get to you where you can do something with it. Like these are great things. This is like the team just makes sense. And this is what I thought Cleveland needed to do. They just kind of figured it out, which is like kudos to Cleveland. But like I was a big fan of the DeJounte trade, mostly because it freed up both of these guys who didn't work together, but were good players.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. I do like how that panned out for them. It just like made the roster make a lot more sense. And I think I didn't even take too much consideration into it when the trade happened. I saw it as more just a win for the Pelicans. I thought they were just getting the better player. But seeing how it's kind of panned out and seeing how Dyson Dennis has looked in with this team and this type of role makes me reconsider that trade in that way, seeing it as more of a win-win for both in that sense. And then I think moving on to Detroit. For one, they've gotten Cade healthy for a little bit, but I think we're seeing the difference between JB Bickerstaff and Monty Williams. They kicked out Monty Williams and they brought in JB Bickerstaff, who we forget did a lot of work in Cleveland, brought them to be one of the better teams in the East. Was with them all through their year last year, where they did have a good season as well. So he knows a thing or two about cultivating a culture for a young team and bringing them up and getting them to play winning basketball. I think it's now established that he is one of those coaches and should be, I think, respected as such.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the question with JB is more like, is he a championship coach?
Yeah, that'll be his next evolution.
Yeah, and like we're all guilty of placing like all of the emphasis on championships, but you have to build a team to get to a championship. Like not a lot of fans like to wait through the build, but the build's important. And if JB Bickerstaff's best skill as a coach is to take young teams and bring them right up to the edge of contending, like that guy should work his whole life, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like,
that's a very valuable role.
Yeah.
Very
every team's going to need it at some point.
And who knows, because they saw Kenny Atkinson as that coach now, and he's a guy who replaced him in Cleveland, and now they're looking to him to be one of those coaches to be the next step, the Kerr-esque type coach. I wonder if that's Bickerstaff's evolution as well. Like coaches can still, I think we kind of forget that coaches can grow too. They can get better. They can figure things out. They can get worse. These things happen. As years goes by, philosophies change, and if you're not able to adapt, things happen. But the good ones find a way. But yeah, I've liked what Detroit has done this year so far. I think it took Monty a long time to put the ball in Jaden Ivey's hands to begin with and let him really play as a guard. So they've gone that right out the gate early on this season. They've had that chemistry working with Cade. It's looked pretty well. Jalen Duren's still growing as a young player. Would like to see him get a little bit more minutes, but they're working towards that. But yeah, overall, Detroit's been a success story. They have far more wins now than they did at this point last year. So it's like nothing but great things to say about what's going on in the Motor City.
Yeah, and so far they don't even have Oscar Thompson. So
yeah. Just got cleared, but he should be back soon.
Yeah, it should be back soon. So the team even has reinforcements on the way. And I'm still cautious because you and I last year were like, yeah, Detroit
burned so badly.
Look at all this talent. How could they not be good? And this year they're like, hey, we're kind of good. And I'm like, not yet.
Don't fool me.
Not yet. I want you to be good, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah. Me too. I'm starting to get there. They always entice me, this Detroit team. Cade, something about Cade that just makes me feel easy. Even though he always has like this turnover problem, I still feel at ease with him handling the ball and just being the head of a helm. And I feel like because all through his like scouting careers too, like coming out of high school, coming out of college, he never really had a team that like suited his strengths. Like he never had shooters around him to really make it easy for him. So he's had to develop all these other things that like when he does get a team that has like good scoring and good shooting around him, I just want to see what that evolution really does look like with ultimate space. Because right now the game plan on Cade is you just kind of crowd him, you stick your hand in there and he's going to turn over the ball or he'll make a rash decision. But I think that has a lot to do with the team build, and if they can just get that team build a little bit better to where we can finally see his potential, we might see something exciting.
Don't tease me. Don't tease me. Right now, it's a team full of cutters, just athletic guys, right, who are willing to cut. He doesn't have shooting yet.
No, he's like Simone Fontecchio. That's about it. That's about all he got. And Saucer at times too. But yeah, I think that's good enough. Kid's good. Yeah. That's good for our. I think that's good for our checking on the East. Still, we have some early MVP talk to get to. If I could bring this up right now, yeah, there we go. So currently NBA.com, they do their NBA leader. This is as of November 15th. So just to rattle it off quickly, we got Jokic coming in at first, Jason Tatum in second, Kevin Durant at third, Shea at fourth, Anthony Davis fifth, sixth is Steph Curry, seventh is Giannis Antetokounmpo, eighth is Luka Doncic, ninth is Donovan Mitchell, and 10th is LeBron James. So that list of 10 there. Any shocks, any surprises, any trends that you're seeing that jump out to you right away? I'll keep it up for you.
I guess I kind of expected like Kevin Durant and Luka Doncic to be flipped. I didn't expect Durant to be like doing this well this early, and I expected Luka to be doing much better this early. Also, like, you know, Jason Tatum having a great year, right? Refound his 3-point shot. Is playing better than he ended off the year last year. Deserves to be up there. He's the best player on one of the best teams. Yeah. But in my opinion, like, Donovan Mitchell has played almost exactly the same, right? So why is Tatum at 2 and Donovan Mitchell at 9, right?
I believe last year we had a similar conversation just before Donovan Mitchell like got hurt and he was ineligible to win MVP. But it was like Cleveland had a very good record last year too, and Tatum was getting a lot more of the notoriety for how successful his team was. And when Donovan Mitchell does not play, the Cleveland looked a lot different. And when he was playing, they were like one of the best teams, and he was holding down the fort for when Mobley was injured, Allen went down a little bit, and Garland was out for a long time last year, and Donovan was kind of like the steady guy. I think that was the one thing that kind of stood out to me too. I think even when my notes here is Donovan too low on this list. They just lost their first game of the season. We're like 3 weeks in, they lost their first game of the season. But is that a testament to, we were talking a little bit before we recorded about like the way the teams are built. Is that more of a testament to the way that Cleveland is built, that it feels more of like a unit that is doing this as a team, bringing the success to Cleveland, as opposed to having that one dominant player that is overwhelming? Because Garland's had a better year this year, a much better bounce back year. Mobley has stepped it up on the offensive end this year, and he's still bringing the defense that he has. So is it that Cleveland's just being looked at as more of a collective, or is Donovan Mitchell just being a little overlooked?
I think he's being a little overlooked, because I would argue that Boston's a collective as well. And I just think there's more people making the Jason Tatum should win an MVP argument than anybody's making a Donovan Mitchell should win an MVP argument. But I think he's been, I mean, I would have to bring up the two players, and I'm sure there's some differences. Like, Tatum should naturally have, a higher rebound rate. But it would be interesting to look at, like, because they're so close, to look at things like win shares and with and without stats, like all the really advanced stuff.
Yeah.
To see if there is a separation between the two players. But on the surface of it, I've got two guys who score similarly, who end up with the ball at the same times in the game, who mean the same things to their teams. Their teams are both the best two teams in the East, and one of them's ranked second and the other one's ranked ninth on this list. And I mean, a lot of it's always going to come down to like market and narrative, like when it comes to awards. And I know it's silly, but it's just part of it. So like having the Boston, New York media closer, to Tatum than like the Cleveland, media really, really stumping for Donovan. Plus, I don't think, like, I don't know if Donovan makes a lot of noise about being the MVP.
No, I think for any of these awards, the only time he's really showed out was for that Rookie of the Year, and he really won that over Ben Simmons. Like that was the one time like he's really aggressively campaigning for an award. Ever since then, he kind of been in the background, just kind of like whatever happens type of deal.
Yeah.
But I think you're onto something there. Like I think between those two players, it should be a lot closer. Like looking at that list, I'll just bring it up again quickly right now. I think he should be higher closer to that 5th spot. Like I don't see how Giannis with their team is just starting to kind of find their shot. I mean, Giannis has had an unbelievable season.
Yeah, Giannis has been. That's the thing. Everybody on this list has had a fantastic season.
They're playing incredible, but like team success usually comes into play for a lot of these things. Like I think Donovan probably has earned himself a look into that top 6-ish range. Like I don't see any reason why there's so many more West teams with players here than they have Donovan Mitchell. At this point, I mean, even against the best team in the NBA, Boston today, he had 35, and he was like a reason why they were able to come back in that game tonight. So I think that being overlooked just a little bit, here, and hopefully as the season progresses, we see more of that rise. I think one of the trends that I noticed on early looking at this list was a bunch of the old guards still being on here. like you got Jokic at number 1, Durant at 3, you got Anthony Davis at 5, Steph Curry at 6, Giannis at 7, 10 is LeBron. And you kind of feel like, especially guys like Durant and Curry and LeBron, you would think by this point in their careers they wouldn't be on this list anymore. But it just goes to show you like that era of basketball was just so dominant, dominant that it's still carrying over into the current era. The guys like Anthony Edwards haven't really broke through as well, partially due to team success. Still trying to figure it out. But yeah, I thought that was one of the more interesting things to look at. Like even you look at Phoenix, you have Durant there, not Booker, instead of like the older guy instead of the younger guy. So I think that old guard still hanging on is just an interesting thing to kind of track throughout this season.
Yeah, well, you did hit on some of the league's best players ever. Like LeBron's in the conversation for greatest of all time.
Steph is one of the greatest point guards of all time.
Perhaps the greatest shooter of all time. Maybe
Durant might be
the game.
One of the best scorers of all time.
Right? Exactly, right? Nikola Jokic could go down as one of the weirdest, funnest players of all time. Who knows?
It's certainly one of the best peaks we've ever seen on offense. Like he's asked to like this run right now, like currently right now this season, he's averaging like he's putting up like insane numbers. He has 29 points, like 30 points, 14 rebounds, 12 assists, 1.5 steals, and 1 block. Like numbers like that just don't happen on a daily basis. Like we're talking about this MVP combo. Is it like locked up again? Like did Jokic kill it? Like did he already
it's the only thing that goes against him right now is that it's so early in the season. Like the fact that we're even having MVP talk at this point in the season is kind of like we're about 20% in. It's kind of crazy. But you watch Jokic and it's so surreal because he's not the most athletic guy, he doesn't necessarily look like the guy you expect to be out there just putting up the gaudiest numbers, but you watch him and he looks like you're just playing like my player in 2K, where you're just kind of like, you got the ball all the time. Everything's running through you. You're just getting silly numbers. And you're not even like, you're just kind of out there, just kind of like moving around. Right? You're like, oh, I'll throw it over there. I'll make him throw it back to me. I'll get a bucket. But that's like how Jokic is playing against the greatest players in the world. And you look at that MVP list, some of the greatest players of all time. This guy is just like operating at an absolutely insane level. Greatest second round pick of all time. I love players who are really like smart, cerebral players, right? Guys who understand the game at such a high level. Like, what's Jokic's vertical? And does it matter?
Does not matter.
What's his 40-yard dash time? And does it matter?
Right? Like he'd be looking pretty fast when he does those intros. That little speed run. I don't know, maybe be quick. Give Noah Lyles a little run for his money.
every like conventional metric we use to like measure athletes and things like that, he flies in the face of, and yet he's far and away the best player in the NBA right now.
It is quite absurd. What he's been able to do, especially in these last like 5 years. Like I don't think like the peaks is like we've had peaks like Jordan, we have like LeBron peaks. I think he's in that conversation of like just greatest peaks of all. Ben Taylor, Basketball Thinking, used to do like these greatest peaks videos. If anybody wants to check those out, those are great videos. They have like it for a bunch of different players from like Wade, Rayon, a bunch of different places he overlooked. I don't know if he's done one. I haven't checked in on his stuff recently, but if he is to do one on Jokic, that one will be that would be interesting. I want to see where he would kind of fare out when it comes to like greatest peaks of all time, because it's just been absurd what he's been able to do, and he got a championship out of it.
He got a championship, and just a couple of years ago when Giannis was winning all the MVPs, we were like, "Oh, this guy, he's gonna take home so many." Yeah, we're in the era of Giannis Antetokounmpo, and he hasn't gotten any worse. Like he's had worse. Yeah, he's had a phenomenal like prime and should win more MVPs. But we've just entered the Nikola Jokic era where he could win 4 and 5 years.
Yeah, like every year I entered the season being like, you know what, the voter fatigue is gonna set in. Like we can't keep voting for this guy for MVP. Like they're not gonna give it to him again. And the season happens, and you're like, well, how do you not? Like we have to give it to him again. But if I am gonna pick a dark horse here out of this list, Shea was the guy I ran with last year, but I think this year, with the way things are set up, if the Lakers can maintain being one of the better teams in their conference, stay in that top 4-ish, top 5 realm, I think this might be Anthony Davis's year. I don't know if he'll get Defensive Player of the Year, but I think MVP should be something he should be strongly considered for. As we record this, he's averaging 31 points, 11 rebounds, only 3 assists, but 1.3 steals and 2 blocks per game. And efficiency has been great. 56% from the field, 42% from 3, not high volume, but he's still shooting them and it's going down. And we know when AD is hitting his shot and it is going down, they win a championship. That's literally what happened. So I think if there's going to be a dark horse that can kind of maybe steal away this MVP, I know we're very early to steal away. No one's earned anything yet. But if there's someone who can challenge Jokic for MVP this year, I think a sneaky one could be Anthony Davis.
It's a good choice. Mine this year will be Shea. I look at that list and I just kind of think like by season's end, like if Jokic cools at all, the conversation will start to move away from him. Just naturally, just partly out of the content machine needs some level of like conversation around the MVP. And then in which case, does the narrative rule the day? And the narrative that generally rules the day is the best player on the best team. I still expect Oklahoma to be one of the best teams in the NBA. Yeah. Shea was right there last year. I think he's taken a step forward, not the biggest step in the world. But I think he's taken a step forward. And I just think like, I kind of have a feeling like if you haven't fallen in love with Oklahoma yet, this is the year that like they become every NBA fan's like second favorite team behind their home team.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think we're going to see it pan out. Now, I think with regards to Shea taking that step forward, I think that is on point. Like he's been trying to shoot a lot of threes this year, and he's trying to do it in an efficient way. And I think he's starting to mix it in a way that's working for him. Tonight he shot 7, hit 4. So he's keeping up that efficiency and bringing it to the 3 ball. I think that just adds another layer to what he can do on the offensive end, which was already like one of the best scorers in the NBA. So to add that 3-ball and just to add spacing, which helps out guys like Jalen Williams, helps like guys like Jalen Williams and Chet able to operate it in different positions. Just being a willing 3-point shooter, he creates that much more space, because before you can kind of sometimes go under the screen when they screen and roll him. They tried to do that a couple times in this game, and he just killed them with the 3. So if that's happening now, it's just. And if off ball, you can't really cheat off of him to help out, give extra help to guys like Jalen Williams and Chet, then it's going to be even more problems to guard this already tough OKC team. I think that's good,
before they trade for Giannis. So
that's before they trade for Giannis. Yeah, I think that's good for this episode. Anything else before we head out? Any closing thoughts on the MVP or anything that we just might have missed?
I'm gonna say it for a long time probably, but I just love the NBA Cup.
It's a great thing, man. Like I really just can't find the downside in it at all. Like what would we be doing right now? We'd be like these games have been good. Like the NBA Cup games are good for whatever reason, whether it be just the like we mentioned, the money, for whatever reason, there just seems to be a different type of, or it's not quite playoff. It's not quite playoff like atmosphere, but it's not quite NBA season either. It's just something special there. As much as I don't like the course, it helps just set the stage for this is something special.
See, I like the courts. Now, not every design is like great.
I like the concept of the courts.
They're so different. Yeah.
It really establishes what part of the season we're in and what we're doing. And I think it provides that atmosphere for these games that it treats them more closer to a playoff, not quite playoff atmosphere, but not quite season either, which is good, which is exactly what you want.
Exactly what you want. There's been buy-in from like the players. These games are good. It's a fun little thing, like a fun little tournament to like keep track of. Like did we say during the broadcast or off the broadcast that like like Atlanta being 2-0 in the NBA Cup? Like, are they this year's Indiana Pacers?
They might,
or are they this year's Lakers? Like, you know, I still love the idea that like one of the worst teams in the league could win the cup, right? And then like not make the playoffs. Right? Like it's just so wild. Just because it's such a short little compact tournament, and like, you know, any given Sunday rules. So yeah, I wasn't like completely sold on it last year, like going into it. I was like, I don't know, we'll see. It seems like a gimmick. And the NBA has just like done it so well.
Yeah.
And like we probably have to give all the credit to the players and just like buying in.
The buy-in, yeah.
If they were like, this is silly, I don't care. I'm just gonna
the All-Star game.
I'm just gonna like I'm gonna play this game like any other, you know, try and get some points, but try not to get hurt. It's a long year.
And I like what they did with the NBA Cup with the point differential thing. There's a lot of talk that they might kind of nerf it this year, but I don't think they have. And it's like, because some people are upset about like how those games are ending. Oh, disrespectful, taking a shot. Oh, get over it. So I like that they kept it, because even like at the end of, I think it was the Heat Pacers game. They're up by like 17, but and like there's 20 seconds left, and usually you just run out the clock. But they're like, can we get a little 2 in here? Can we get a 3 in here? Like, I like that. I like playing to the final buzzer, play till the game is over, and make every possession kind of count. And if the players are going to take that serious, I think it's a tremendous thing that the league has done. One of the bright ideas that Adam Silver did bring to the league.
No, I love it. It's like having, in a way, it's like having 2 playoffs. You know, I think it's better than the minor league tournament.
Oh yeah, I think so too. I think it's marketed better. It feels cleaner. It happens a little bit cleaner than the play-in. The play-in, even though they've had it a little longer, still feels like a little janky. It's like, what's really going on here? They get another, like, it's still like a little. The NBA Cup feels a lot more, as complicated as it was when we first were introduced to it. It feels a lot more straightforward than like kind of the play-in tournament is. the days I think leading into the play-in is fun. Like trying to find that position, like who's gonna like be the play-in teams. I think that time of the season is fun, but I think the play-in itself is still kind of a work in progress.
It's okay. I like it because it extends like, teams playing hard towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
But just overall fan enjoyment. I just enjoy the cup more.
Way more. Me too. I would have to agree. And that would do it for this episode of the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. You can follow us at the NBA Hangout. You can follow me at BJAY93_ on Twitter, X. You can like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that fun stuff. You can follow Dave here every week. Thank y'all for hanging out with
Brandon,
us.
when are you getting on Blue Sky?
I'm on Blue Sky. I gotta add that here. I'm there. I've migrated over to Blue Sky and skeeting all over the place. I think that's what they call it. That's what I heard.
I don't know. I just hear like every other podcast I listen to, everybody's like, follow me on Blue Sky.
Yeah, I'm there. Follow me there. If you're there, I'm there. We'll see what happens. See if it lasts. See if it's. All right. Thank y'all for hanging out. Peace.